All right, so here we got a car that is driving 12 miles directly west, and then sort of takes a turn and then drives 16 miles in the southwest direction. So then the question is, how far in miles is the car from its starting point? Okay. So let's just draw this out just to get a visual idea here, right? So we don't have to draw this in the XY plane. I mean, we could if you want to, right? But essentially, let's say starts here and then it goes 12 miles directly west, okay? So essentially, this is a vector, right? And the magnitude is 12, and then sort of makes a turn, right? And then goes 16 miles southwest, right? Well, wait a minute. What would be the southwest direction here, right? So southwest should be somewhere along this line right here, right, southwest. Okay, so essentially this car, right, is going to end up over here, right? So this 16 miles, okay? So what is the question then asking? The question is, what is this distance here, right? What is this distance? Okay, how far is the car from its starting point? So this, one thing you got to realize is we have three different vectors here, right? So really what we're doing is we're just doing vector math, okay? So we have this vector u, right? I'll call that u, which is the red one. And we have this vector v, okay, which is the green guy here. So if we want to get the vector in blue, right, this is just vector math, which means we have to get the components of u, right? We got to get the components of v and then add them together, and that'll give us the blue vector, okay? And then we should be able to find its magnitude. So hopefully at this point you're realizing that whenever we're dealing with vectors, right, the components are the key. Right? We always need to get the components of each vector. Well, the red one sort of is pretty straightforward here, right? The car drives 12 miles to the west, okay? So that's going to be, what, negative 12i, okay, plus 0j. We should write that, right? So negative 12 means that it does go to the left. Okay, or if you were in the xy plane, right, it would go to the negative x direction, and 0j, which tells us that it does not move up and down at all, right? Okay, so the vertical component is 0. Okay, so that's vector u. What about vector v? So this one's a little bit trickier. We got to find, right? Now we do know the magnitude, though, right? So let's check it out, right? And we also know that the car goes southwest. Okay, so I guess we'll draw the xy plane here, right? So what would that direction be, southwest, right? What would this angle here be? Okay. Well, let's check it out. We know that this is 180, right? We also know that this is 270. So if this car is going southwest, then this angle should be 225, right? 225 degrees. So then we can get the components of the green vector, right? We can do 16 times cosine of 225, that would be the horizontal component, and then 16 times the sine of 225, and whatever that is, that would be the j component, or the vertical component. Okay, so make sure you understand why we got 225 here. Okay, because this car is driving in the southwest direction, okay, which is going to be halfway in between 180 and 270. So based on the direction, you should be able to determine the angle. Okay. So let's calculate this, right? Well, we know, right, what the cosine of 225 degrees is. It's negative rad 2 over 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and write the answer here, right? Negative 8 rad 2i plus, or in this case, I guess that'll be a minus, right? That'll be a minus 8 radical 2j. Okay? And that is the components of the green vector in v. Okay? So then what does that make W? We'll call this guy, right? So W then would be just U plus V. Okay? So indeed, we would just add the corresponding components together. Okay? So negative 12 minus 8 rad 2 minus 8 radical 2, that would be the horizontal component, I. And then 0 plus this negative 8 rad 2, so that would be minus 8 radical 2j. And this would be this vector w. Okay, now you notice here we do have this radical here, right? So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, if you want to convert that to a decimal, okay, you can do that. But what do we want to find, right? We want to find how far this car is from its starting point. Well, that's just the magnitude, right? That's just going to be the magnitude. Okay? So that means we're going to have to take the square root of negative 12 minus 8 radical 2 squared plus negative 8 radical 2 squared. Okay? Now, in this case, you're going to have to use your calculator to sort of do this here, right? Okay. So we're going to get the square root here. So if, in your calculators, just doing a little bit of rounding here, we should get the radical 671.53 once you calculate this all out. And we do need to take the square root of this guy, right? So we get 25.92 if we round that to 2 decimal places. Okay. And that would be the distance, right? That would be this blue distance right here. Notice we do not use the Pythagorean theorem, right? 12 squared plus 16 squared. Okay, this is not a right triangle or a right angle here. Okay, so we have to use the vectors and the components of the vector to find the final distance, W.